Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Paramahansa, Bhagavatsaptaha, Ashtotar the Sri Srimad's Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvajikacharya Ashtotar the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai Grantaraj srimadbhagavatam ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Narayanam namaskritya Narang chaiva narottamam Devim saraswatim vyasam Tato jayamudire. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashtaparisha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Can you pull those curtains for me? Thank you. On this 16th day of February 2020 in SanDiego, a reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in Canto 4, the creation of the fourth order. Chapter 22, Prithu Maharaj's meeting with the four Kumars. Text number 29. Nimitte sati sarvatra jaladavapi purushaha atmanascha padasyapi vidham pashyati nanyada. Nimitte sati sarvatra jaladavapi purushaha atmanascha parasyapi vidham pashyati nanyada. Nimitte sati sarvatra jaladavapi purushaha atmanascha parasyapi vidham pashyati nanyada. Nimitte sati sarvatra jaladavapi purushaha atmanascha padasyapi vidham pashyati nanyada. Nimitte sati sarvatra jaladavapi purushaha atmanascha padasyapi vidham pashyati nanyada. Nimitte sati sarvatra jaladavapi purushaha atmanascha parasyapi vidham pashyati nanyada. Go ahead. Nimitte sati sarvatra jaladavapi purushaha atmanascha padasyapi vidham pashyati nanyada. Nimitte, not nimitte, nimitte. You have to stop on that double T. Try it again. Nimitte. On account of causes. Sati, being. Sarvatra, everywhere. Jala adau api, water and other reflecting media. Purushaha, the person. Atmanaha, oneself. Cha, and. Padasya api, another's self. Vidham, differentiation. Pashyati, sees. Na anyada, there is no other reason. Translation, this is Sant Kumar speaking to Maharaj Prithu. Only because of different causes does a person see a difference between himself and others. Just as one sees the reflection of a body appearing differently, manifested on water, on oil, or in a mirror. Purport. Now, there's some pretty shocking statements here, just like the last verse. The spirit soul is one, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is manifested in Svangsha and Vibhinangsha expansions. The jivas are Vibhinangsha expansions. The different incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are Svangsha expansions. Thus there are different potencies of the Supreme Lord, and there are different expansions of the different potencies. In this way, for different reasons, there are different expansions of the same one principle, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This understanding is real knowledge. But when the living entity is covered by the upadhi, or designated body, he sees differences, exactly as one sees differences in reflections of oneself on water, on oil, or in a mirror. When something is reflected on the water, it appears to be moving. When it is reflected on ice, it appears fixed. When it is reflected on oil, it appears hazy. The subject is one, but under different conditions, it appears differently. When the qualifying factor is taken away, the whole appears to be one. In other words, when one comes to the Paramahansa or perfectional stage of life by practicing bhakti yoga, he sees only Krishna everywhere. For him, there is no other objective. In conclusion, Due to different causes, the living entity is visible in different forms as an animal, human being, demigod, tree, etc. Actually, every living entity is the marginal potency of the Supreme Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita 5.18, therefore, it is explained that one who actually sees the spirit soul does not distinguish between a learned Brahmin and a dog, an elephant, or a cow. Pandita samadarshinaha. One who is actually learned sees only the living entity, not the outward covering. Differentiation is therefore the result of different karma, or fruit of activities, and when we stop fruit of activities, turning them into acts of devotion, we can understand that we are not different from anyone else, regardless of the form. This is possible only in Krishna consciousness. In this movement, there are many different races of men from all parts of the world participating. But because they think of themselves as the servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they do not differentiate between black and white, yellow and red. The Krishna consciousness movement is therefore the only means to make the living entities free of all designations. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. The spirit soul is one, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, Prabhupada explains the rest. This verse and our previous verse, was it the previous or the one before that? Yeah, I think it was 27. Yeah. When a person becomes devoid of all material desires and liberated from all material qualities, he transcends the distinction between actions executed externally and internally. At that time, the difference between the soul and the supersoul, which was existing before civilization, is annihilated. That was kind of a shocker when I first read that many years ago. I thought we're always different. When a dream is over, there's no longer a distinction between the dream and the dreamer. And Prabhupada explains in the purport that the oneness is oneness of purpose. And we share so much else with Krishna. We're both spirit, pure spirit. But we never merge and lose our identity, our individual identity. And the same thing is here with this one sentence. The spirit soul is one. But then Prabhupada explains, he's manifested as svangsha and vibhinangsha. Vibhin means, seriously separate. Bhinna means separate. Just like we have this, this is all by way of explaining this basic philosophy of Lord Chaitanya, achintya beda beda tattva. Notice that word beda and abeda. Beda and bhinna are related. Abeda means no difference. And beda means difference. So we're simultaneously and inconceivably one with and different from the Lord. Now, how we're one with and how we're different from, this is a large part of the philosophy. Because when we understand those two, then we can understand and consciously serve Krishna in such a way that we feel ourselves to be connected, always connected, and we're fulfilling. We're one with, in the sense of fulfilling the desires of the Lord. We have the same quality, and then this basic point of our philosophy is fulfilled with our understanding, and that is that by watering the root of the tree, all of the leaves and the branches are satisfied. So, if we try to apply it to other human beings or animals or something, it doesn't quite work that way. And that is that, okay, I become devoted to serving my dog. I read the other day that there are more households in the United States with pets in them than there are with children. Pets are so popular, people have to love something. So they want to make the pet, as comfortable as possible. They feed him nicely. When you go to New Vrindavan, anytime you actually drive up toward New Vrindavan, there's this big pet cemetery. And you see all these ornate headstones and everything, and you say, wow, people really must have loved those pets, right? So, but there is an inevitable difference on the designated platform and the material platform. You're not, serving the soul. You're not trying to make sure that the pet eats prasadam and hears Hare Krishna,
That can also be another thing that happened in the Chaitanya Leela, where a dog, a very fortunate dog, was following the party all the way from Bengal into Orissa, into Jagannath Puri to see Lord Chaitanya. And it was part of the party. And Shivananda Sain was making sure he was fed and was giving him all consideration as another devotee. And so at one point he didn't get his prasadam, and they were crossing a river, and the man wouldn't take him on the boat, and so the dog became separated from the party. And so Shivananda Sain was like heartbroken. He didn't take care of this devotee. That was his whole service, was to see to the welfare of the, hundreds, thousands of devotees who were going from Bengal to see Lord Chaitanya, and they would stay for 3 months and then go back. So he fasted a day, he felt very bad. Then they finally got to Puri, they saw Lord Chaitanya, and it was the dog. The dog had gone up ahead, and he was eating, Lord Chaitanya was throwing a green coconut, and he was eating it, and he was chanting, Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. He was chanting the name. And the devotees were amazed. And then they didn't see him again. They said he went back to Vaikuntha. So that's seeing equally. That's seeing the soul. This is the soul. He's not different. And as Prabhupada makes the point near the end of the purport, a real devotee, vidya vinaya sampanne brahmane gavihastani shuni chaiva supakache pandita samadarshana, he quotes that last line, that someone who's learned, who understands the reality, he doesn't make a distinction. It means he sees the same spiritual quality in every living entity, every living organism, say, whether it's an elephant or a dog, a cow, a learned Brahmin or a Chanda or whatever. So in that way, he doesn't discriminate, and yet you have to deal with each one differently. Prabhupada says, this doesn't mean that you see a lion and says, oh, another servant of Krishna, and embrace him. It doesn't work that way. Because he may be intrinsically a servant of Krishna, but he doesn't know that, and he's going to deal with you like he does as food. So that's not the way it works. You still have to discriminate in how you deal with others, but you see the essential spiritual quality of all, and that everyone is ultimately a devotee of Krishna. Now, in the society of devotees, this manifests as a wonderful freedom from designation, especially, when I went to Mayapur so many times. And each year, there's more and more devotees. You have a whole Russian contingent, there's a Chinese contingent, Africa. It's true United Nations, as Prabhupada said one time. Because don't forget, he came to New York, first. And he would wander around. He saw the United Nations building. I don't know if how many of you have actually been there. But it's just like he said, all the flags are posted outside. And there's so many more nations over the years. It started in 47 or so. So many more nations came into being. In Africa, somebody got independence, and so there's more and more flags now. So he says, but there's no united. They're not united. There's still wars going on. There's still strife, because everyone is still seeing the designations. They're all based on nationalism. And nationalism is one of the qualities that's mentioned in that verse, yes sattva buddhi kunapeti dhatake, of being the consciousness of a cow or an ass. Boma ijadi. Boma ijadi, to think that one's land of birth is worshipable. That's the essence of nationalism. So you cannot be united unless you transcend these designations. And that's what the verse is about. The different causes. What are those causes? Those causes are fruit of action that bring us down into the material consciousness, where we identify wholly and solely with this body. It's very difficult to get out of that. We've been identifying that way for millions of births. Whatever body you happen to be in, you identify, that's me. Even in this one body. You can just recall how different you felt when you were an 8-year-old kid. You had a different consciousness, a different mind, knowledge. You certainly had a different body. And people treated you as a little kid, and that's the way you felt yourself to be. And then you grow older and you say, oh, now I'm 10. And all different, things happen. And you get older and older, and you're always identifying with it. I always like to give the example of, this is the real root of ignorance in the material world, is this complete identification with the body, and the mind. So I used to live in Miami. I told this several times, but I don't think you heard it. Back in the 80s. And when I arrived, they had just finished building a boardwalk. It cost millions of dollars, you know. And so we actually had a former hotel. So it was right on the beach, and we could see water within 100, you know, about 100 yards. And so, you know, I had a room right on the beach side, and I would look out the window, chance the mouth, and I would see during the day a lot of old people who were retired. They would just walk on the boardwalk. That's what it's for. So you have a nice place to walk rather than on the sand, which is difficult. Okay. And over the years, I was there for 6 years. And there, due to, I don't know, changing economics or something, there came this phenomenon where wealthy people from Brazil would come up during their winter, because the summers were also pretty mild, especially on the beach. It was a little warm, but it was much better than the winter in Brazil. And so they would come up, and they set up these volleyball nets right on the beach, and they would play volleyball. And you could see this was, you know, the upper crust, you know, like maybe 20, 25 years old, you know, and they were just having a great time. So there you had this phenomenon of these young, you know, very fit Brazilians playing this volleyball, having a great time. And here you'd have these old codgers, you know, walking along the boardwalk, doing their thing. So they're looking at the young, the healthy people, and they're looking at them. And each one is identifying with themselves. You know, now the older people are by nature wiser, saying, "Oh yeah, I used to be able to do that." But the young people, I mean, I know when I was 18, I said, "Boy, I'm glad I'm not old. I'm 18. You know, that's who I am. I'm 18." You're not really thinking, and certainly not, you know, what's the implication from that I'll get old one day. I mean, you know, theoretically that's going to happen. But you feel yourself to be categorically different from that person, because you're not on the spiritual platform. You identify totally with the body. I'm glad I'm not, you know, that way. So that we would see that, and you could see it, that the young guys are, you know, they're you know, looking, oh boy, I'm not, those are the old people, and we're not young, and we're much more fortunate. But it's just ignorance. Time, we read this morning this quote about time, how Krishna is time. He says like 4 or 5 places in the Gita, I am time. Kalik kaliyadamaham, of chastisers or controllers, I am time. Or kalos miloka chaikut pavido, in the 11th chapter, very dramatic. You know, Arjuna is frightened. And he says, "Who are you? You know, and like, you're not my old friend Krishna, are you?" And you know, that's implied. And so Krishna says, "Kalos miloka," you can hear, you know, I am all devouring time. I've come to destroy everyone. You know. So it's really like that. That time is just pushing everything forward in all of your plans, because we're intrinsically eternal, right? That's who we are, Satchidananda. We never die. That's the first lesson of the Bhagavad Gita. We never die. We never get old. You know, we can't be cut. We can't be burned. But we've forgotten all that, and the identification has come completely into this body. So Krishna is saying, as time, I destroy everything. You see, and so anything you try to build in this world, whether it's, you know, a position, a relationship, property, whatever it is, it's just foolishness. You're becoming attached to that, even just in the planning stage. And then if you're successful, you have it, you know, and you feel yourself successful. But it's all simply part of this mirage, this wonderful description here about the reflection on water and oil, you know. I mean, reflections are intrinsically unsteady, right? You know, they come and they go. You know, any little thing can change it. So that's the nature of time. You know, just like this horrible thing that just happened in Australia is still going on. It's changed everything, killed, I don't know how many hundreds of millions of animals, wiped out, you know, whole ecosystems, everything. The fires. Here's a man who doesn't check the news out on the internet. For like weeks, I mean, huge, devastating fires. People had to leave their homes and take shelter on the beach. It was, you know, Australia is like a big desert basically, with this habitable coast, you know. And the interior is very barren, you know. Anyway, they had these horrific fires they've never had like before. And people, in Sydney and in Melbourne, in all these cities we've heard about, in the main city, they were choking on the smoke. They weren't, just safe or anything, being in the city. They were also feeling it, and it's just changed everything. How people feel now about Australia living there. It's due to climate change. It's due to the raising temperatures and the change of the whole thing. So, what brought that about? Well, it's happening through time, And the ignorant people, this whole thing with how young kids are all up in arms about it. You've taken our future. You old timers, you'll die out, by 2030, 2035, and we'll have to live with it. So they're demonstrating by the millions. But this is a perfect example of gross ignorance. They're identifying with their bodies, and insane. These billionaires, they're building spaceships to think they're going to go and take shelter on Mars somewhere. Or maybe New Zealand, we'll have an underground bunker, because they can see what's going to happen. But I read one time that one guy was saying, how can I be sure that the servants I have will stay loyal? In other words, you can't just live alone underneath. You can't. They're not going to stay loyal. There's nothing left. In other words, it's total insanity. So this idea of designations. Now this brings us back to this key verse in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Prabhupada quote all the time, and that's this word upadi. You see, comes in. Sarvopadi vinimuktam tatpadatvena nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhaktir uchite. Here's a definition of bhakti, and it's also a definition of pure bhakti. It comes right near in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, near the classic verse, Anyabilasha Dashunyam. Here's pure bhakti, uttama bhakti. First one, it isn't. He says it's devoid of any other desire, categorized in roughly jnana, karma, and adi, etc. Avritam, not covered, not diluted or affected by any desire for sense gratification, for liberation, or for some yogic siddhis. These are the classic other desires that you have. So that's absent. Well, what is it then? Anukulena Krishna Anushilanam Bhaktiruttama. To be always acting with mind, body, and words. That verse also came in previous purport. Everything you do, karmana manasagada. Karmana means your senses. Your active senses and your knowledge-acquiring senses. You have 2 sets, 10 senses. Active senses are what we normally call senses, eyes, ears, nose, sense of touch. And your active senses, your hands, your feet, generative organs, and so forth. So with everything you do with those senses is done favorably for the pleasure of Krishna. With the mind, of course, also. Mind, the words, and the senses is for the pleasure of Krishna. If you reach that state, you're a pure devotee. You see. Now, over many millions of lifetimes, we've cultivated other desires and karma, so it's not so easy to get out of that conditioning. But this upadi, this designation, in Krishna consciousness, what are we trying to do? First of all, become conscious of Krishna. That's the basic sadhana, the chanting of the holy name, the seeing the deities, reading the books, hearing the lila. I was listening to some of my old recordings of Vrindavan lila. It's not the most professionally done, but it's absorbing to see Krishna and hear about him, and all of his qualities are there, names or everything. So become conscious of Krishna, and to arrange one's life in such a way that whatever you do is connected to Krishna. To feel, I'm doing this for Krishna. I mean, this is what we're trying to achieve. It's not so easy to get from here to there, but the cloud will lift. We'll no longer feel that we're this body. What a blessing. I'm telling you, it really becomes a blessing as you get older, to feel that, okay, I'm getting older, little things, are hurting that didn't hurt before. I'm coming toward the end of this body. But I'm fully convinced, from hearing and from practicing and associating, that I'm not the body, I'm pure spirit soul. I'm not going to die. I'm going to go on to a better destination, hopefully back to Godhead. People don't have that. As you're getting older, it becomes like a horror story, trying to eke out some little sense gratification, you know. And there's so many people, this society. I was reading how the family has, in America, what to speak, you know, from India we hear about the extended family. It's a real family. You know, you have all the support. But in America we used to have that also. But over the years it's come down to the nuclear family. We just, hopefully a mother, father, and a kid or two or three, you know. But that's also fading. One of the reasons is because kids grow up and they move away. Now they grow up in the Midwest. No one wants to stay there. Flyover country. So they move. So what's left? You have these older people. Hospitals are closing. There's nobody there, you know. And so people end up they're alone in the nursing home or something. Nobody visits them, calls them. Can you imagine the nightmare then? And so that's not natural. It's not natural. It's all a question. It's all due to the artificial nature of the modern society, where everybody is, the relationships are not necessarily with your family. They're with hundreds of thousands of other people who may be very, very far away, and so it isolates you. What do you really consider? Who are you? You know, I mean, the video game thing is bigger than movies. People are bored with their own little identity. And let me get this avatar, right? I can play. Well, you were here 8 hours a day? I'm sure that's not unusual. And you identify with that. But you see how self-destructive that is, mentally, emotionally. You're not really that person, you know? I mean, really, you're not even the person sitting there, but that, you know, it's crazy. But when you get free of these upadhis that are inherent to the mind and body, and you're identifying yourself as a pure spirit soul, and what is the nature of the pure spirit soul? Jivera swarupoi Krishnera Nityadas. You accept these words of Krishna in the form of Lord Chaitanya, non-different, right? That's the third verse of the whole Chaitanya Charitamrita. That the actual nature or swarup of the living entity is to be a servant of Krishna. And we can be happy forever in that identity if we do it. Because we're not only different from Krishna, we are one with Krishna. And that means that just like the root of the tree, when the root is watered, the whole tree becomes nourished. It's not that the root feels, you know, unhappy because it's only the root and there's the branches and the leaves. The root is also nourished. Everything is nourished. So similarly, when we serve Krishna, we also become happy. When we not only serve Krishna, but serve him in love, meaning that we're happy when he's happy. That's the essence of the whole thing, is that we take our pleasure more and more, and ultimately solely, in the pleasure of Krishna. And because we're one with Krishna, right? Because we're achintya, abheda as well, we'll also become completely blissful by Krishna's being happy. We'll feel the reciprocation of Krishna's love for us. Exactly as we approach him, he'll approach us. Because in one sense, we're one. We're one. That's what he's emphasizing here. So what makes us lose that identification is this upadhis and this wonderful analogy here of the body reflected in different media. So this material energy is the medium, you see, and the soul is now reflected through different bodies. Even in this one lifetime, right? We see ourselves differently. I remember when I was a kid, you know, I started, you know, growing up, go to school, you know, so you look in the mirror and you see, yeah, not bad. What's that? A hair fell out. I became panic-stricken. I was, you know, so attached. You know. My God, am I getting bald? I'm a like 9-year-old kid, you know. I'm getting bald, this hair. But that's, you know, crazy identification. But that's in a culture that everything is body, body, body. That's what you end up with. And you know, multi-billion-dollar cosmetic industry and all of these different things, and plastic surgery, you know. I mean, if plastic surgery is possible, why should I, you know, be complacent when I get a little something here? Why not take it out, you know? It may cost $1,000, but I'm rich, I can do it, you know. The whole thing, it's just a kind of madness. The whole thing is a kind of madness. So different media So we're seeing ourselves in different bodies, human bodies, animal bodies, and we're identifying with each of them. But they're all changing and moving, and so it's always a place of anxiety, because you can never be steady in one situation. You can see animals; they're always on edge because there's always some threat, isn't it? The birds, we don't see so many birds as we used to around here. But Prabhupada would point out the bird is looking for its little worm. We used to see a lot of robins where I grew up. They see there's robins and they're hitting the ground and getting their worms. But they're always alert. It's a cat coming. This is the way they survive. As soon as there's some perceived danger, even if that's not true, it'll fly up. This is their strategy for defense: fly up into the sky or into a tree. Okay, we're safe now. And that's life. Where's food? And where's sex? And then, okay, I got to take a little rest, and then protect from danger. The most urgent one is the danger. You may be eating, you may be doing something else, whatever you're doing, but if there's some danger, immediately you stop that and take some measures, because that's the whole body, the whole basis of it. But the body is eventually going to leave anyway. It's going to break down and die. So the whole urgency is not to try to protect the body, although we take normal measures just to live nicely, but to create a consciousness such that we won't have to take another one of these bodies, that will actually regain our original form, this idea of a swarup. This is what mukti is. There's 10 subject matters dealt with in the Bhagavatam, and that table of contents is there in a couple of verses in the second canto, if you're interested. And one of those subject matters is mukti, liberation. This should be a concern of all conditioned souls. Now, as you get less conditioned by the practice of bhakti, it's less of a concern, because you're feeling liberated anyway, automatically. But in the initial stage, it's a very powerful impetus. It should be. And that's why Krishna says, Janma mrityu jara vyadi dukkha doshana darshanam. One of the elements of knowledge is to be aware of birth, old age, disease, and death. The sense gratification society is full of things to try to help you forget that. Just live in the moment. Don't worry about the future. Live in the moment and buy what we're selling you. That's the basic thing. But that's total ignorance and doom. It dooms the living entity to the cycle of birth and death. So being a little dhira, being thoughtful, that word dhira comes, right? What is that? Dehinosmin yata dehe komaram yovanang jada. Tata dehantara prapti dhiras tatra namuyati. The embodied soul is moving through different stages: childhood, adolescence, middle age, old age, and then finally takes another body at death. The dhira, the sober person, not the self-realized person, the sober person who is a little thoughtful is not bewildered by such a change. So nobody's dhira. Everybody's running around, following the senses. So this upadis, or mukti hitvanyata rupam swarupena vavastati. To give a definition. There's all these definitions of the subject, and they're expanded on. So this one is the most famous. What is mukti really? Giving up other forms, all of these different forms we've had, which we've identified with as upadis, as designations on our real self, and be situated in your swarup. This idea of swarup. This generally pertains in these contexts to the real self. Just like it's here, this word svanksha, sva-anksha, means his own self. Krishna expands as vibhinangsha and svanksha. That's through the beginning of the purport. Sva-anksha means Vishnu Tattva expansions. Balaram, the first expansion. Then all of Chatuvyuha, Vasudeva, Sankarshampa, Jumna, Niruddha. The Purusha avatars, the Mahavishnu and Garbhodaksha Vishnu, etc. And the Leela avatars, like Varaha and Nrsingadev and Kurma, Matsya. They're also Vishnu Tattva. What does that mean? It means that they have Krishna's powers, but they only display a certain percentage of them. Krishna displays all of them. That's why Sri Bhagavan Vacha. He's not an avatar. He's an avatari. He's the source of all the avatars, you see. But still, Balaram is just as strong as him. Although it's interesting in Krishna Lila, I always was amazed at this. I won't tell this story. I was giving class in LA many, many years ago, and someone challenged something I said about the Agasura, about the Brahma Vimohan Lila. Brahma Vimohan Lila is great. That's where Brahma steals the calves and hides them, you know. So, in that particular pastime, when Krishna, right, the whole thing is, Brahma's watching Krishna play, and he's watching him have lunch on the bank, and it doesn't compute, just like with Indra. It doesn't compute that this is God. This is like the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the little child playing, you know. So Brahma said, he doubted it, but unlike Indra, he didn't do something so radical as try to destroy the whole Vrindavan. That was nuts. So he stole the boys, stole the calves, and put them away in slumber and see what Krishna could do. You know, see if he's actually good. So he comes back after a second of his time, which is a whole year of Earth time, to check on things, and because he was a little doubtful. And he finds no change. Krishna's still playing. He's already done this for a whole year. He's playing with the same boys and he's playing with the same calves. And Brahma has got bewildered. That's why it's called Brahma Vimohan Lila. Not just Mohan, but Vimohan. And he checks on the caves wherever he's holding the boys. They're still there. The boys are there. The caves are, you know, the calves are there in the cave. Well, what's going on? So then he realized, well, there's a whole new set that Krishna has expanded. Exactly identical boys, exactly identical calves, so that their mothers couldn't even see. The cows couldn't understand they're different, and so they just dealt with them the same way. And so Krishna's, you know, because he's expert, he's accomplishing several things at once. He's enlightening Brahma, which results in these wonderful prayers of his. And he's blessing all those cows and mothers, because they love Krishna anyway, more than their offspring. But here they're actually getting a chance to suckle them for a whole year. You know, the cows are feeding the calves, and the mothers are pampering the boys, you know, and their love is just growing more and more. So now the reason I mention this is because Balaram is witnessing all this. And he's seeing that this ocean of love is like expanding more. Near the end of the year, there was an incident where the cows are being herded near on a rise in Govardhan Hill. And down below are these calves. Now these calves have grown to the state where they don't suckle the milk anymore. They just eat grass, tender grass. Calves, I don't know much about cow herding, but that's apparently what's going on. So these calves are not these cows' own calves. They're still Krishna calves, but the cows don't care. They ignore the cow men who normally can control those cows, and they start galloping down the so fast. They want to go as fast as possible. So you know how horses can gallop. The back feet and the front feet go together rather than the cows just usually walk. You know, anyway, it's described like that. And they went down that rough path onto the mountain until they got to these calves, and they started licking the calves, you know, and trying to feed them milk. And Bala said, "What is going on here? There's too much love. I mean, there's already, you know." And so he asked Krishna. Krishna told him, "Yeah, these are, you know," he said what happened. So now the question is, how come Balaram didn't know? Balaram is not different from Krishna. Isn't he also omniscient? You know? So to further the pastime, Krishna somehow prevented Balaram from knowing. You know what I mean? So that's indicating, so someone told me, no, Balaram knows everything. In this class I was giving, I said, no, it says right here that he didn't know. So, you know, there's surprising things. So, Swamsa Vibhinangsha. So Krishna has all these manifestations. Some of them are energies. Some of them are himself, Vishnu Tattva. We're part of his energy. We're one kind of energy, the marginal energy. We're always marginal energy, whether in the spiritual world or the material world. You know, which means we always have a capability of turning away from Krishna and absorbing ourselves in material energy. That's what marginal means. You know, even though Krishna says once you go back there, you don't come back here. Well, that Prabhupada explained that as once burned, twice shy. You know, but those who have always been there, some of them have come down here. That's how we got here. That's Prabhupada's explanation, and I'm going with it. You know, some say no. Well, those who were there never come here. That means those who are here have always been here. That doesn't sound fair, does it? What did I draw the short straw that I had to be in the material world? No, it was our own fault. Everything that, why we're here in this material world is our own fault. So, understanding that we're angsha of Krishna. Angsha means part and parcel. And that's where, even though we're separated, we're still one. This is the inconceivable, achincha beta beta, which means we have Krishna's qualities in minute degree. That's the oneness. We have his qualities, not all of his qualities, but 50 of the 64. Probably would love to give it the percentage, 78%. We have 78%. So, and our function, our natural function, is to serve him with love and feel that reciprocation from him. You hear Krishna Lila, you read the 10th canto, and that's what's going on. They're glorifying Krishna, they're serving him in Vrindavan, and then he serves them. What happens? The fire comes, the demons come, he's protecting them, right? And he's just giving them back what they're giving, and it's ideal. Except because it's a material world, you find these demons coming. But then it's another way in which he can show his love for them by protecting them. The Govardhan Leela, it's such a seminal pastime. Here's this great danger. What do? They call upon Krishna. It's not fall down or contamination. Just like we're told, ultimately we shouldn't pray for mukti, for Krishna. We should pray for love. We should pray for devotional service. And Lord Chaitanya showed us, nadanang nadanam nasundari. I'm not praying to you for wealth, what people usually pray for, followers, nice mate, whatever. I'm not even praying for you for mukti, because I'm saying birth after birth. Then what are you praying for? Unmotivated, pure devotion unto you. That's what I'm praying for. He's teaching us how to pray. So now, but that of course includes mukti. If you actually attain that state, you're liberated. You don't care. Bilva Mangal says, if someone worships you with pure love, then they get the result of that. What is that, mukti? No. It's a vision of your beautiful adolescent form. Bhakti stvayis chadatada bhagavanyadisyad daive nanak palati divya kishora murti. Your divine adolescent form. That's the result of this worship. Bhakti stvahi stiratata, steady, bhagavanyadi syad, causes you to reveal yourself in your most attractive form. And as far as mukti is concerned, Swayam Mukalitanjali Sevate Sman, she's waiting to serve me by the door with this Anjali mudra. Mudras are real important, Now look at in the church, Western church, you got this mostly, right? Sometimes this, but mostly this. There's nothing in there. It's not an offering, it's a prayer, please give me this. But Anjali means you can offer their flowers, right? You can offer your heart, right? This is Anjali. So she's waiting to serve me. How can I serve you? The mukti. And as far as whatever I need of dharma, artha, and kama, they're also waiting for me. In other words, I'm not going to worry about it. You feel liberated. What's the feeling of liberation? I don't care. No more desire for anything material. Just give me the association of devotees. I'm just reading the Bhagavatam, first canto, checking my corrections. And there's this key verse. It appears 3 times in the Bhagavatam, with one little variation, just like that other one. That was 5 times. Tuliyama lavenape naswagam naparabhavam bhagavat sangi sangasya martyanam kimutashishaha. Tuliyama means equivalent to, or can be compared to. Lavenapi, even a moment's association of a bhagavat sangi. Who is a bhagavat sangi? An associate of the Lord, someone who is pure devotee. Always thinking of the Lord, always serving the Lord with every breath. That's a bhagavat sangi. The association of such a person is so great that even the heavenly planets or liberation can't be compared to it. It's just so much greater. What to speak of any material benediction like wealth or anything like that. Tuliyama lavenapi. And Prabhupada has a wonderful purport there. What's the value? Why is that moment's association? Lava means half a second. Because that can plant the seed of bhakti in you. That's the whole idea. That is that moment's association. And that association, this is, of course, the positive side of technology, that can come through so many media. People have, there's a story, a whole center started in Russia without a devotee going there. A book was distributed, and someone read the book and said, okay, I'll chant Hare Krishna, and he started chanting and telling other people. Before you know it, there were a whole bunch of people chanting and worshiping. Pictures, you have pictures on the internet, so many things. Of course, then, another sannyasi went there and trained him up and everything, But the point is that association can come through media. But there's no substitute, ultimately, for one-on-one association. This is another problem with all of this internet thing, is that people are relating to others through this media, and it's not natural. And on the material side, it can be disastrous. Mostly because people are not really showing their true self. They're presenting a certain facade. So the last leg of Dharma, truthfulness, is being attacked. You can see in the political realm, and the so-called spiritual realm, everything. What to speak of commerce? It's all based on lies. They're selling you something with the idea that you'll be happy. That's a lie right there. You may have a little pleasure for a while, but then you'll become unhappy because it's used up. You can't buy it again, or so many things. But Krishna consciousness, if you take to it, it's free. Anyone can chant, and the holy name is the most valuable thing. Nama Chintamani Krishna. It's Chintamani gem, because it transforms your heart into gold. Gold, metaphorically speaking. Oh my God, I went over time again. So that's the oneness there. Just to end. Is that this distinction between ourselves and others is there on the material platform? We know that. But ultimately, we're all servants of Krishna. We're spiritual beings. And when we relate to ourselves, or we see ourselves that way, we can relate to others, and then the artificial barriers break down. And you say, oh, this person is a devotee, hey, Hare Krishna. It doesn't matter tall or short, or all of these externals. Still, we need, there's etiquette and decorum needs to be maintained, but that's not the essence of how we're relating to ourselves and others. We're seeing spiritually and acting spiritually, and it's the only sane way of living in this material world until we hopefully get out. Any comments, questions? Yes. Excuse me. Let me just take a drink of water.
A friend of mine, the other day she was in the Ralph's parking lot, I think, and a car almost hit her, and she threw herself out of the way. She sprained her ankle. And I was thinking, when the body is feeling fear and anxiety, two things happen where your heart rate goes up, your pupils dilate, and you're ready to defend yourself. And so my question is how does one find that middle ground where you acknowledge that what's happening in the body is real, you can't ignore it, but also Prabhupada mentions that it's the material calamities are false.
Ultimately, yeah. Well, through practice, one can. I'll tell you an experience. This is no great thing, but it worked. I've used this toothpaste that really prevents cavities. I mean, I had no cavities for 25 years, but it was one cavity that developed here. I go to this dentist. This Kurbadi's, they've been supporting the regular cleaning, which is important, to prevent any problem. And it's been years and years and years. I haven't had any problem. But he finally said, well, you really should get this one filled, There's a cavity, and otherwise you may lose a tooth and this and that. I said, okay. So this was just a few weeks ago. So I went there, and he said, okay, do you want Novocaine? And I'm not sure why, but I said no. I said, no, I don't want Novocaine. Okay, he said. And so he started drilling, And I was feeling some twinges, but I was chanting in my mind real loud, Hare Krishna. I couldn't chant, So I was chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And then there was one point where I kind of involuntarily twitched, because of the pain and everything. And then he put the filling in there without the mercury. I don't know how people can get mercury filling. Anyway, they have a composite that they do. And then it was over. And there was no pain. And so he said, I don't know how you did it. Normally when I got down there, people would be screaming, and they all want Novocaine. And I said, well, I didn't tell him I was chanting Hare Krishna in my mind, but I just said, well, the yoga process is, because he wouldn't understand. But it's all a question of the mind. You train the mind to remember Krishna, to think of Krishna, to be absorbed in Krishna. And then, yes, these things will happen, these dangers will happen, you'll react like your friend did. She probably didn't even think, she just reacted, And there's some anxiety, there's some beating of the heart. But the lasting aspect of it, in other words, these traumatic experiences in your life, they can scar you mentally, so that it's hard to get over them. But if you have you train the mind to withdraw from that and to fix on Krishna and pray to Krishna and become absorbed, the inner scars can be minimized, so that you're not carrying that with you. That's really the way it's done. Because after all, at a certain point, we're all going to face death, disease. So that's really what we're training to do, is to face that final calamity and be in a state of mind that says, well, I know I'm not the body, and to just be able to, as best as possible, withdraw it from the bodily situation and fix it on Krishna. Because it's the state of your mind that's going to determine your next destination. So that's, the invaluable. Now I've seen devotees. I was at various bedsides, with devotees passing away. I don't know why, but they asked me to chant oftentimes. You remember Radhanath? You were there for Radhanath. And then Padmavati. Oh, you weren't there for Radhanath? Your mother was there. Yeah, she was. This is a devotee. I'll tell you a story. That he helped make you devotees, right? He gave you the first book. Yeah. Invited? Oh, really? I'm sure it was an oversight. I don't think it was intentional. Anyway, devotees, even though you say, well, they may not be completely pure, but there's a different aspect. This Padmavati is amazing. This wonderful story. She was here for years, and when she had COPD, you know what that is? Yeah. And so finally, she said, well, she called me up. He said, I'm going to the hospital. I think this is it. I said, well, what's the matter? I can't breathe. Obviously, it's kind of a stupid question. It was Ekadashi, which was auspicious. This was in 2011. And right around this time of year, January. And so I went down there with Rajendra Nandana. You know him, the tall, very wonderful devotee, comes here. His wife is living here. And so he happened to be in town, so we went there and we started chanting. And you know who was there? I don't know if you know this. Dravida Dasa was there with, you know her? You heard about her? This is a great story for this. Anyway, that's another story for another time. But she was there with Ladli already chanting in the hospital room. Now, she was hooked up to the breathing machine and everything, And you don't know how conscious they are, But I sensed that she was hearing, that she was able to hear. And so we started chanting and chanting. And eventually, Dravida, who at that time was probably like 94 years old, she had her own health issues, so she had to leave. Ladli was taking care of her. She did a wonderful service, years and years of taking care of Dravida. And so it was just me and Rajendra Nandana. And she had her daughter and 2 sons that had flown in from different parts of the country. So we're chanting, and finally the daughter says to us, well, okay, now's the time. Basically, I don't know, she didn't use this term, but pull the plug, and she's going to go on. So we want you to leave. He says, oh, it would be really good if she could hear one. He said, no, this is a private family affair. He said, okay, what are you going to do? So we walked out, and just down the hall there was a waiting room. We waited there. 15 minutes go by, and one of the sons comes in and says, can you come back in? We took all of the breathing and everything out, but she's still, hanging in there. She's still, somehow surviving. She doesn't want to go peacefully, So, okay, so we came back in and started chanting again. Within 2 minutes, she had left. In other words, she was awake enough and aware enough that she wanted to hear that holy name. And I swear, the way I recall it, maybe I'm, seeing it through rose-colored glasses or something, but she had a sense of peace and happiness on her face when she was hearing us chanting, the holy name. She was able to leave with the holy name, which is really an invaluable thing. So this is, certainly, you're at the point where there's nothing you can do. The body is doing its thing, and you're going out. So what's the shelter of the ordinary person? Just utter terror, They don't know what's coming. But devotees have this background in the philosophy, you have experience, and you're chanting, you have faith in Krishna, you just chant the holy name. And it changes everything. So we can also get to that point before we leave where we're living in the body, but we're not identifying with it. We're using it as far as possible to serve Krishna. And we're cultivating our inner remembrance of Krishna, which is unlimited. There's so many things you can do. So that's really the way to overcome the anxieties. It works. All glory to Srila Prabhupada.